Oh, hi, Autry. This is Anita Foster. I'm the Library Media Specialist at Autry Middle School in Kennesaw, Georgia. And if you're wondering why Miss Foster's kind of laughing when I started, I had already read this book, the first few pages of it, once. And for some reason, the book hit a key on my keyboard and stopped it from recording. So I did not know that until the very end, that it did not record but a minute in. So I'm going to redo it real quick. Today, we are still celebrating Banned Book Week, or Banned Book Month. September is Banned Book Month. And we are going to be reading one of my favorite genres is dystopian. But this one is also a classic literature one because this was written in the 1950s. But it is Fahrenheit 451. Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. And I believe it was published, I looked it up last time, it was published the first time in 1951. 1951. So this book is a long time ago, but it's a really good book. Now, Miss Foster, I've been trying to tell y'all why they've been banned, so let me tell you why this one was banned. Are you ready? Because it's kind of funny. This book was banned because it talks about banning books. Seriously! A book was banned because it talks about banning books. So, I'm not going to read the first chapter. The first chapter is 66 pages long. If I did that, I'd be reading for about an hour or two. So, instead, I'm just going to read the first few pages of it, and then if you would like to check it out, you may check it out. Alright, so here it goes. Are you ready? It was a pleasure to burn. It was a special pleasure to see things eaten, to see things blackened and changed. With the brass nozzle in his fist, with the great python spitting its venomous kerosene upon the world, the blood pounded in his head, and his hands were the hands of some amazing conductor playing all the symphonies of blazing and burning to bring down the tatters and charcoal ruins of history. With his symbolic helmet numbered 451 on his stolid head, and his eyes all orange flame with the thought of what came next, he flickered the igniter, and the hose jumped up in a gorging fire that burned the evening sky red and yellow and black. He strode in a swarm of fireflies. He wanted above all, like the old joke, to shove a marshmallow on a stick in the furnace, while the flapping pigeon-wing books died on the porch and the lawn of the house, while the books went up in a sparkling whirls and blew away on a wind turned dark with burning. Montag grinned the fierce grin of all men singed and driven back by flame. He knew that when he returned to the firehouse, he might wink at himself, a minstrel man, burnt corked in the mirror. Later, going to sleep, he would feel the fiery smile still gripping his face muscles in the dark. It never went away, that smile. It never, ever went away, as long as he remembered. He hung up his black beetle-colored helmet and shined it. He hung up his flame-proof jacket neatly. He showered luxuriously, and then, whistling, hands in pockets, walked across the upper floor of the fire station and fell down the hole. At the last moment, when disaster seemed positive, he pulled his hands from his pocket and broke his fall by grasping the golden pole. He slid to a squeaking halt, the heels 1 inch from the concrete floor downstairs. He walked out of the fire station and along the midnight street towards the subway, where the silent air-propelled train slid soundlessly down the lubricated flue in the earth and let him out with a great puff of warm air onto the cream-tiled escalator rising to the suburb. Whistling, he let the escalator waft him into the still night air. He walked toward the corner, thinking a little at all about nothing in particular. Before he reached the corner, however, he slowed, as if a wind had sprung up from nowhere, as if someone had called his name. The last few nights he had had the most uncertain feelings about the sidewalk just around the corner here, moving in the starlight towards his house. He had felt that a moment prior to his making the turn, someone had been there. The air seemed charged with a special calm, as if someone had waited there quietly, and only a moment before he came simply turned to a shadow and let him through. Perhaps his nose detected a faint perfume. Perhaps the skin on the back of his hands, on his face, felt the temperature rise at this one spot where a person standing might raise the immediate atmosphere 10 degrees for an instant. There was no understanding it. Each time he made the turn, he saw only the white, unused, buckling sidewalk, with perhaps on one night something vanishing swiftly across a lawn before he could focus his eyes or speak. But now, tonight, he slowed almost to a stop, his inner mind reaching out to turn the corner for him. He heard the faintest whisper. Breathing? Or was the atmosphere completely, merely, by someone standing very quietly there, waiting? He turned the corner. The autumn leaves blew over the moonlit pavement in such a way as to make the girl who was moving there seem fixed to a sliding walk, letting the motion of the wind and the leaves carry her forward. Her head was half bent to watch her shoes stir the circling leaves. Her face was slender and milk white, and in it was a kind of gentle hunger that touched over everything with tireless curiosity. It was a look almost of pale surprise. The dark eyes were so fixed to the world that no move escaped them. Her dress was white, and it whispered. He almost thought he heard the motion of her hands as she walked, and the infinitely small sound now, the white stir of her face turning when she discovered she was a moment away from a man who stood in the middle of the pavement waiting. The trees overhead made a great sound of letting down their dry rain. The girl stopped and looked as if she might pull back in surprise, but instead stood regarding Montague with eyes so dark and shining and alive that he felt he had said something quite wonderful. But he knew his mouth had only moved to say hello. And when she seemed hypnotized by the salamander on his arm and the phoenix disc on his chest, he spoke again. Of course, he said. You're our new neighbor, aren't you? And you must be, she raised her eyes from his professional symbols, the fireman. Her voice trailed off. How oddly that you say that. I'd have known it with my eyes shut, she said slowly. What, the smell of kerosene? My wife always complains. He laughed. You never wash it off completely. No, you don't, she said in awe. He felt she was walking in circles about him, turning him end for end, shaking him quietly, and emptying his pockets without once moving herself. Kerosene, he said, because the silence had lengthened. It's nothing but perfume to me. Does it really seem like that? Really? Of course, why not? She gave herself time to think of it. I don't know. She turned to face the sidewalk, going towards their homes. Do you mind if I walk back with you? I'm Clarice McClellan. Clarice Guy Montague. Come along. What are you doing out so late, wandering around? How old are you? They walked in the warm, cool, blowing night on the silvered pavement, and there was the faintest breath of fresh apricots and strawberries in the air. And he looked around and realized this was quite impossible, so late in the year. There was only the girl walking with him now, her face bright as snow in the moonlight, and she knew she was working his questions around, seeking the best answers she possibly could give. Well, she said, I'm 17 and I'm crazy. My uncle says the two always go together. When people ask your age, he said, always say 17 and insane. Isn't that a nice time? And isn't this a nice time of night to walk? I like to smell things and look at things and sometimes stay up all night walking and watching the sunrise. All right, so I'm going to stop there for today. This is Fahrenheit 451. The other thing, my 18-year-old son informed me I need to have a tagline to go off. So, if you can think of a tagline, you can always email me. If you want to check this book out, you can do it through Destiny. There's a video on our Autry CLC page that will show you how. All right, Autry, pick up a book. Take a look. It's in a book, right? That's somebody else's tagline. I can't use that. All right, Autry, have a great day.